I am
Okay, so you're going to
precluded.
decline to comment, so let's not talk about that case, but let's talk about what you've written. You know, I have to say I was astonished. Senator Grassley asked you about this article you wrote in law school, and your response was, well, gosh, I haven't read that. In my experience, when people are nominated to be a judge, they do some preparation. Did you not reread it in preparation, or did the Biden team tell you don't read it because you don't want to answer questions about it?
Senator, I read it, but again, the question that Senator Grassley...
Okay, good. So you read it, so let's talk about it.
Hey guys, welcome back to Capitol Insights. Today we're diving into a judicial confirmation hearing that's got everyone talking. Senator Ted Cruz versus Judge Cotto. It's a showdown you won't want to miss. Buckle up because we're about to break down the 10 most explosive moments from this intense face-off. So, picture this. Cruz kicks things off by asking Judge Cotto a seemingly simple question. Is racial discrimination wrong? But hold up. Cato's response will leave you scratching your head. Instead of a straightforward answer, she starts talking about judicial ethics. I mean, come on, it's not exactly rocket science, right? But Cruz isn't letting her off that easy. He digs deeper, pressing Cotto on her views about discrimination in college admissions, especially against Asian Americans. It's like watching a courtroom drama unfold right before our eyes. Now, this is where things get really juicy. Cruz pulls out an article Cotto wrote back in law school, and you can almost see the sweat forming on her brow. He's surprised she seems unprepared to discuss it. I mean, if I were up for a lifetime appointment, you bet I'd be ready to defend every word I've ever written. The article? It's all about Asian American activism and neoconservatism during the Reagan era. Cruz starts quoting from it, and let me tell you, it's not your average bedtime reading. Alright, here's where Cruz really turns up the heat. He interprets Cato's article as suggesting Asian Americans should support policies that discriminate against them to be sufficiently woke. I know, it sounds crazy, right? But that's what he's getting from her writing. Cotto's response? She keeps dodging, saying she needs more context. It's like watching a high-stakes game of verbal tennis, and Cruz is serving some serious aces. As we near the end of this intense exchange, you can practically feel Cruz's frustration through the screen. He's pushing Cotto to clearly state her current views on what she wrote, but she's not budging. It's like trying to nail Jell-O to a wall. Impossible and messy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to each of the nominees. Judge Cotto, I want to start with you. Is racial discrimination wrong?
Senator, our Constitution prohibits race discrimination, discrimination on the basis of race.
Okay, let me ask again, is racial discrimination wrong?
Senator, as a judge, I don't deal with issues of morality or whether something...
So you have no views on whether it's right or wrong?
Senator, because that is an issue that is frequently litigated before the courts, pursuant to Canon 3 of the Code of Conduct.
Okay, so why does the Constitution prohibit racial discrimination?
Senator, I think it's part of our Constitution and this nation's history of aiming for equal justice and treating people, regardless of any protected class status, equally and fairly.
So discriminating based on race violates, I think you just said, our Constitution's history of aiming for justice. Is that a fair characterization?
Senator, our case law, if you're talking about race discrimination under the law, yes, pursuant to Supreme Court precedent, race discrimination under the law is prohibited.
So you and I are both graduates of the Harvard Law School. We were there at the same time. I don't think we crossed paths.
We did not.
As you know, our alma mater is currently before the Supreme Court for its longstanding practice of discriminating against Asian Americans. And many top universities across the country have vicious discrimination policies against Asian Americans. They are reminiscent of the quotas against Jews that we saw these same schools impose in the 1950s. These schools believe that Asian Americans have been too successful academically, and that if they allow students to compete based on merit, they'd have too many Asian Americans. And accordingly, Harvard and Yale and a number of other top schools in this country explicitly and brazenly discriminate against Asian Americans. Does that practice concern you?
Senator Cruz, as you know, the Supreme Court recently granted cert in the case to which I think you're referring.
Yes.
And therefore, pursuant again to Canon 3, I am
Okay, so you're going to decline to comment, so let's not talk about that case, but let's talk about what you've written. You know, I have to say I was astonished. Senator Grassley asked you about this article you wrote in law school, and your response was, well, gosh, I haven't read that. In my experience, when people are nominated to be a judge, they do some preparation. Did you not reread it in preparation, or did the Biden team tell you don't read it because you don't want to answer questions about it?
Senator, I read it, but again, the question that Senator Grassley...
Okay, good. So you read it, so let's talk about it. I've read it sitting here, and I find it stunning. Look, there is a pattern of this administration nominating political activists and radicals to the bench, and they've done it for a year. And it's highly concerning. So I'm looking at what you wrote, your words. You described, quote, the Reagan presidency represented the pinnacle of the counteroffensive launched by the guardians of the status quo. In the face of institutional resistance, activist movements redirected their focus from liberation to survival. Do you believe there was a threat to the survival of Asian American groups under President Reagan?
Senator Cruz, again, that was a law review, book review.
I'm just asking if you agree with the sentiment. You wrote it.
Senator, I don't recall.
Do you agree with it now?
What we were thinking.
Do you agree with the sentiment now? Not what you were thinking then. I'm not asking your state of mind then. I'm saying, do you agree with the words you wrote?
Senator, again, I don't know what our purpose...
I don't want your purpose then. Today, as you listen to the words you wrote, do you agree with them, or do you think I was wrong?
Senator, without the complete context...
Okay, let's read a little bit more then. You talk about the neoconservative view, and here's what you define an Asian neoconservative: as someone with an opposition to racism, so that's good, but a commitment to ending affirmative action programs. And you write, quote, the neoconservatives' narrow vision of success currently threatens to impose divisions within the Asian American community and among different ethnic groups. Emphasizing personal achievement and success as measured by the status quo, the Asian American neoconservative fails to acknowledge the shared history of oppression and then ties their individual success to the survival and liberation of all oppressed peoples. Judge Cotto, as I read this, what you're saying, and if you will permit me to use a more common vernacular, you're saying that to be sufficiently woke, an Asian American must support policies that discriminate against Asian Americans. I got to tell you, that doesn't make sense. Is my reading of what you wrote incorrect?
Senator Cruz, again, we are talking about something that I wrote when I think I was a 23-year-old
But do you agree with it
student.
today? I'm not asking what you thought then. I'm saying today, as you sit here, as the Senate is considering you for a lifetime appointment as a judge, do you agree with what you wrote?
And there you have it, folks. 10 jaw-dropping moments from this explosive hearing. From racial discrimination to college admissions, from decades-old articles to modern-day politics, this exchange had it all. But hey, before you go, if you enjoyed this breakdown and want more juicy political content, smash that subscribe button. It really helps the channel, and you'll never miss out on the latest and greatest in political drama. Until next time, stay informed with Capitol Insights.